Ideas are the currency of the 21st century, and the book Talk Like TED invites you into a living laboratory where public speaking becomes a vehicle for turning ideas into movements. Carmine Gallo frames TED Talks as more than a series of performances. They are experiments in the science of influence, where neuroscience, storytelling, psychology, and stagecraft combine to produce talks that feel inevitable, emotionally charged, and memorably transformative. The core premise is simple and powerful. When a speaker unlocks the core human drivers, passion, authenticity, a clear purpose, and a well-crafted story, the audience leans in, experiences a shared emotional moment, and walks away moved, convinced, and ready to act. The book becomes a field guide for achieving that effect in any setting, whether you're pitching to investors, leading a team, or addressing a large audience. The book introduces a 9-secret framework that underpins TED-style talk. The secrets aren't a rigid checklist but a living set of principles that together create speeches that are emotional, novel, and memorable. The first secret centers on unleashing the master within you by connecting deeply with a topic you truly care about. Passion isn't a superficial flourish. It's a force that radiates through delivery, and the science of the brain suggests that authentic emotion synchronizes brain activity between speaker and listener. Gallo brings to life this idea with real-world examples. Amy Mullins reframing disability as potential, Cameron Russell transforming his identity on stage, and other figures who show that a speaker's inner conviction becomes the audience's visceral experience. The deeper question becomes not what you are passionate about, but what makes your heart sing, what larger purpose your work serves, and how that purpose shapes your voice in a way that moves others. The strawberry grower anecdote and Matthew Ricard's framing of happiness as a byproduct of purposeful living tie inner state to public presence, underscoring that joy and authenticity aren't soft add-ons but functional components of charisma. Passion, in this sense, is a social technology that makes nerves translate into energy and energy translate into engagement. The science behind passion also extends to how audiences follow a speaker. Neuroscience and entrepreneurship research show that passion mobilizes energy, fosters persistence, and elevates creativity. The brain's receptivity increases when a speaker's story carries authentic emotion and a clear sense of purpose. Stories synchronize brain activity between speaker and listener, creating a shared attention and emotional resonance that pure data cannot achieve. The telling is reinforced by a careful taxonomy of storytelling. Gallo singles out 3 sturdy forms: personal stories that reveal the speaker's own arc, stories about other people who model actionable lessons, and stories about brands or products that illuminate broader truths about markets and innovation. The aim is not to flood the room with data but to give listeners a human entry point through which data can be understood, remembered, and applied. The emotional core evolves into practical craft. A sequence of stories from sports, fashion, philanthropy, and science demonstrates how passion translates into influence and leadership when it's embodied in delivery. The book emphasizes ethical stakes. Speaking with passion should be rooted in sincerity and a genuine desire to help others, not to win attention or manipulate an audience. Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor's awe-inspiring talk about the brain, delivering a deeply personal account that is both rigorous and accessible, illustrates how authentic engagement can energize a talk, keep listeners hooked, and empower them to act. Part of the approach is a precise understanding of the brain's role in memory and emotion. Neuroplasticity research shows that repeated practice reshapes language and communication circuits, making fluent, confident delivery more natural over time. Brain-to-brain coupling, where a listener's neural activity mirrors the speaker's during storytelling, offers a persuasive mechanism for why stories work so powerfully. Stories aren't mere ornament. They are essential for memory formation, comprehension, and motivation to act. With that foundation, the book then offers a practical storytelling framework, 3 types of stories that structure a talk and give it coherence. The second major strand of the framework is the craft of turning great ideas into unforgettable presentations. A central premise is that stories carry passion, illuminate complex ideas, and inspire action more effectively than slides full of data. The Toshiba Medical Systems launch story, with two concrete characters facing real stakes, shows how a technical breakthrough becomes relatable and urgent through carefully constructed human drama. Kurt Vonnegut's Simple Shapes of Stories, Man in a Hole, Boy Meets Girl, The Cinderella Arc, provide a pragmatic guide to hero-driven narratives in business talks. The audience is invited to project themselves into the story, to feel the stakes, and to see themselves as potential heroes in the tale. The Chase United Way example, opening with a personal history of hardship and triumph, demonstrates how a well-tuned personal narrative can mobilize an audience toward generosity and action. The book then introduces a three-part framework to deliver as if speaking to a close friend: passion, practice, presence. Amanda Palmer's The Art of Asking is used to illustrate how deliberate planning, early feedback, and broad collaborative rehearsal can yield a talk that feels intimate and spontaneous. The author also foregrounds the famous 10,000-hour rule, using Steve Jobs' evolution as a speaker to argue that public speaking is a cultivated skill, not an innate talent. Deliberate practice encompasses two pillars: verbal dynamics, voice, pace, volume, pitch, pauses, and nonverbal presence, gestures, eye contact, stance. The book moves through a data-informed tour of speaking rates among famous voices and offers practical guidance for achieving natural, conversational delivery. The takeaway is not to micromanage every word but to internalize the content so it can be spoken with ease and warmth. Concrete techniques for voice and body appear in a series of vivid examples. Lisa Christine demonstrates how slowing the pace, enunciating clearly, and emphasizing key words can heighten impact. Dr. Jill uses theater-like pacing and expressive storytelling to illuminate complex biology for teens, and Colin Powell's talk illustrates how natural gesture can reinforce thinking. The book demystifies body language by arguing against the simplistic 7% to 93% myth and stressing congruence between speech and gesture. It shows how a speaker's command presence grows when gestures are purposeful and well-timed, and it offers practical do's and don'ts for gesture use. The idea is to make movement feel organic, avoid fidgeting, avoid rigid stillness, and keep gestures within a power sphere that radiates from eyes to fingertip. The sympathetic, open, eager nonverbal style, animated, forward-leaning, and engaged, can be a powerful addition to a persuasive proposition, provided it comes from a place of sincerity rather than rote performance. The leadership dimension of public speaking threads through as well. Inner conviction and outward poise combine to form leadership presence on stage. Janine Shepard's account of turning physical tragedy into a new life on stage demonstrates how metaphorical props and staged movement can sustain audience interest while preserving depth. The message is that inner strength, passion, preparation, and presence provides the backbone for memorable talks, even when the body tests one's physical limit. The book thus invites readers to lean into authentic storytelling and to keep returning to the central theme: your credibility rests on being real, not perfect. The fourth secret, the power of novelty, pulls ideas from cross-disciplinary sources to spark fresh thinking. Robert Ballard's 17-minute talk on the ocean challenges listeners with new facts and then layers in insights about curiosity and discovery. James Cameron's narrative demonstrates how inspiration flows from curiosity, while neurobiology explains why novelty is so potent. The brain releases dopamine when encountering something new, boosting learning and memory. The Flynn effect, the idea that people are getting smarter over generations due to education and mental stimulation, becomes a touchstone for reframing technical content in accessible, everyday terms. The book encourages crossing disciplinary boundaries to spark creativity, drawing on Susan Cain's Quiet to show how introverts can be powerful communicators when ideas are brought to life with quiet, disciplined reflection. It highlights the importance of a strong, tweet-sized headline that captures the core idea, forcing clarity and focus for the speaker and audience alike. The fifth secret is about jaw-dropping moments, creating hooks that seize attention and persist in memory. The malaria-focused mosquito moment Gates introduces a live animal demonstration to puncture the room's complacency and then reveals the larger stakes, turning a slide into an unforgettable moment. The hook should be planned before slides and should engage multiple senses, inviting the audience to feel the message rather than merely hear it. A wow moment is a strategic, emotionally charged pivot in the narrative that helps ideas travel, be shared, and remembered. The book catalogs practical steps for embedding wow moments. Plan one, rehearse it, and fit it into the narrative so it lands at the right moment. Jobs' Macintosh reveal at the Flint Center becomes a canonical example of a wow moment, a carefully staged demonstration that invites the device to speak for itself, followed by a powerful synthesis of technology and identity. Secret number 6 explores humor as a disruptive yet constructive force in persuasion. Humor lowers defenses, endears the speaker, and increases receptivity when used with authenticity. The best humor fits the speaker's personality and the audience's expectations, and it should illuminate rather than demean. The book outlines 5 practical ways to add humor, through anecdotes, analogies, well-chosen quotes, short videos, and funny photos, while warning against stereotypes or cheap punchlines that undermine credibility. It also delves into the social psychology of humor. It signals warmth and intelligence, reduces stress, improves engagement, and can make complex ideas more memorable without eroding respect. The aim is to weave humor into the talk so it serves the message, not to turn the talk into stand-up comedy. The right joke or light moment can lift comprehension and retention when aligned with the talk's arc and stake. Secret number 7 turns to structure and length. The 18-minute rule is defended with cognitive science. Listening is energy-intensive, and longer talks impose a cognitive backlog that degrades retention. The 18-minute duration is presented as a sweet spot that balances depth with attention. When longer talks are unavoidable, built-in soft breaks, stories, demonstrations, or videos help reset attention and reinforce key points. The rule of 3 then appears as a practical tool for memory. Audiences tend to recall triads, such as 3 stories, 3 ideas, or 3 supporting points. The 3 stories framework, used by Majora Carter and others, shows how interconnected narratives reinforce a single theme. A one-page tool called a message map helps craft a tweetable headline and 3 supporting messages, each anchored by a story, data point, or example. These devices are not mere tricks but cognitive scaffolds that help the audience follow, remember, and apply the talk's core idea. Secret number 8 invites multisensory engagement. The brain learns best when explanations engage multiple senses: seeing, hearing, and experiencing the concept directly. The book argues for minimizing text on slides and leaning into images, demonstrations, and the spoken word. The Lifesaver water filter demonstration and Al Gore's climate presentation exemplify how visuals can illuminate data and make abstract science visceral. The picture superiority effect. Pictures boost recall far more effectively than words, grounds this approach in neuroscience and becomes a practical design rule. Visuals anchor memory and emotion, reducing cognitive load and helping the audience retain the core message. The narrative also explores the synergy of image, data, and speech. The same idea can be conveyed through a chart, a photograph, and a spoken story, each reinforcing the others. The goal is to let visuals illuminate, not overwhelm, to design slides that serve the story rather than crowd it out, and to ensure the audience experiences the idea on multiple sensory channels. The chapter also surveys a gallery of groundbreaking examples from Gates, Bono, Chris Jordan, and LinkedIn's pre-IPO slide overhaul, each illustrating a principle. Present one theme per slide, render data with meaningful images, and invite the viewer to feel the implications rather than merely read a chart. TED notes then offer concrete slide design guidelines. Visualize content, cap word counts, and kill bullets in favor of a narrative arc anchored by visuals. The auditory dimension further broadens the learning. Lisa Christine's TEDx Maui talk shows how a spoken narrative foregrounds imagery, guiding the audience's mental pictures and creating a cinematic memory of a scene. Visuals and words cooperate to form a coherent, memorable journey. The book also demonstrates how to craft mental imagery even without slides. Janine Shepard's TEDx talk shows how evocative storytelling can substitute for slides. Cesar Kuriyama's 1 second every day demonstrates how a simple daily ritual can become a narrative engine. Repetition and cadence, the rhetorical devices that anchor a talk's rhythm, are explored with examples from Martin Luther King Jr. and Bono, who use incantatory patterns to fuse statistics with emotional resonance and to create a communal cadence that invites audience participation. Demonstrations, props, and audience involvement emerge as powerful strategies for ensuring the talk stays vivid and tactile. Even a seemingly abstract idea can become a living experience if the speaker orchestrates time, space, and sensation around it. Amanda Palmer's performance is highlighted as a studio example of theatrical presence. Standing on a milk crate, delivering a story rather than a conventional musical performance, she demonstrates that multimodal engagement, story, object, audience participation, can carry a message with the same emotional weight as a traditional talk. Demonstrations, props, and audience involvement become universal tools for illustrating concepts in ways that slides alone cannot achieve. The narrative further emphasizes the importance of product demonstrations and sensory contrasts that invite the audience to feel the problem's pain and the solution's relief, turning technical benefits into human experiences. Secret number 8 concludes with a bold call to be audacious in one's design. The speaker should minimize text, maximize imagery, and choreograph a talk where what is seen, heard, and felt aligns with the message. Courageous choices, one-word slides, feather and blowtorch demonstrations, and other dramatic devices are not gimmicks but expressions of authentic voice. The final emphasis is this: your talk should feel like you. It should reflect your unique temperament, values, and ambitions, translated into a narrative that the audience can inhabit and carry forward. Secret number 9, stay in your lane, anchors authenticity as the essential currency of credibility. Gallo argues that audiences instantly detect phoniness and respond to truth-telling, whether about personal challenges, imperfect balance, or unglamorous realities. He points to Sheryl Sandberg's candor about balance and the leadership examples of Richard Branson and Warren Buffett as demonstrations that credibility grows from revealing one's own journey rather than adopting a copied persona. The audience responds to a speaker who is transparent about vulnerability, who acknowledges what they don't know, and who presents a clearly defined purpose and mission. Staying in one's lane means embracing one's own voice, style, and experience rather than trying to imitate glamorous icons. Authenticity, in this sense, is a public trust-building exercise. When you come across as genuine, the audience believes you, follows your logic, and joins you on the journey. As the book gathers these strands into a cohesive philosophy, it emphasizes ongoing practice and preparation. Even the most seasoned voices are nervous, and the arc of mastery is built on repetition, feedback, and the willingness to revise. The closing pages unify the lessons into a practical blueprint for life beyond the stage. Bring these principles into everyday interactions, business pitches, boardroom presentations, and everyday leadership moments, so ideas can move others and, in turn, move the speaker forward. The finale is not a rigid formula but a living philosophy. Find your voice, design your narrative, and deliver talks that feel inevitable because they are authentically you. The book's synthesis points toward a future in which slides serve the story, data becomes living through images and narrative, listening is enriched by warmth and clarity, and public speaking becomes a personal act of influence that can shape ideas, movements, and perhaps the world. The overarching arc of Talk Like TED is not about mimicry but about mastery. It invites readers to shift from a traditional, data-heavy, text-bound approach to a presentation style that harnesses storytelling, emotion, and sensory engagement. The book's field guide shows how to reduce reliance on text, lean into visuals and experiential demonstrations, and choreograph the audience's attention so that sight, sound, and feeling align with the speaker's core message. The aim is to create talks that feel inevitable, that spark resonance, and that empower audiences to think differently, care more deeply, and act with conviction. In the end, the message is simple. When you connect with your own heart, you unlock the power to move others' hearts as well, and that transformation is what makes a talk truly TED-like. The approach is practical, implementable, and deeply human. It's about becoming a storyteller who can illuminate the human stakes behind data, deliver bold ideas with clarity, and leave an impression that outlives the moment, one that endures in memory, in action, and in the ripple effects of a single, well-told idea.